everybody, here we are, Ultimate Studios Inc. And, hey Jack, what's up? Okay, so having fun with the blues, right? And the first thing I always want to point out is that the blues is probably the most played thing as, you know, as a jamming progression or track. And the thing that is mostly overdone is just the same scale, right? It's always the same thing. It's always the blues scale. And I always want to make a point that just theoretically speaking, so from the music theory standpoint, it's not one key, it's 3 keys. So right now I got this A blues thing going, so it's A7, D7, and E7. And as you theory fans know, there's only one dominant chord per major scale. So when we have 3 different dominant chords, 1, 2, and 3, that means it's not one key, it's 3 keys, okay? So just from that standpoint, it's theory-wise, right? Theory-wise, it's wrong just to play one scale over all of that, right? Theory-wise. I'm not saying it's wrong to do it, but theory-wise, it's wrong. You ask Mozart, and he'll be like, what are you guys doing? You know, there's 3 keys in there. So what are your fun things to do? It's like, well, you start using all the harmonically available tools, right? So the Mixolydian scale based on the arpeggio. So see, it's major with a flat 7. And here's the arpeggio. Alright, so you can even play the major arpeggio for that matter. But you have one flashy tool, right? That's just, it's the arpeggio. You can also play the major pentatonic. You know, that gives you more choices instead of just the blues scale. And I want to point out that the blues scale is actually a minor sound. Right? Now, how can I make the blues scale work? And who we got there? Haha! Hey, Richard, what up? So one quick trick, right? See, so I'm just talking about the A7, right? I'm not talking about the D. I'm not talking about the E7. I'm just the A7. So I'm resolving from the minor third to the major third. Remember, it's not a scale. No, it's just a way to treat the minor third as a passing note. Right? It works most likely descending. If you go ascending, I mean, you would have to keep climbing. Right? So that's one way to treat it, but it always works better when you descend. All right, so far we got the arpeggios, the dominant arpeggios, you can sequence them. You can tap, you know. Right, do the whole tapping thing with the arpeggios. Then you can also do the pentatonic, A A major pentatonic, right? So root, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Then you can also do what's called the Mixolydian pentatonic. What is that? So what do I have here? The root, the 3, major 3, because Mixolydian is a major sounding mode. Major 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Now with all these tools, right, it's just there's so many sounds. And you can mix things together. That's where it really becomes fun. So for example, I can mix all these A sounds into just maybe one long lick or just a combination of phrases. Right? That was just for the A sound. So now, can I use this for the D7 sound? No. Who else joined? All right, Robbie, what up? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we have a blast here as well. And so I can transfer everything that I did on the A chord and do it there. So on the D. And then, what happens when you reach the E? Well, same thing. You just move everything to the E sound. All right, so that means the blues scale, the Mixolydian pentatonic, the major pentatonic, the actual Mixolydian mode or scale. If I do it in E, it should be this. All right, so, and that's about it. So I'll play one more time, have some fun, and then I can show you some things to combine, some cool and crazy sounds. Now D. All right. Now, the thing that you have to obviously keep in mind that you still have to make some sort of sense of all these tools, right? I cannot just go lick by lick and then make them sound like, okay, that's exercise 1, now comes exercise 2, now comes exercise 3. The hardest part about all these tools is to merge into all these different techniques. Going, for example, from an arpeggio into a scale run, right? Right? Do an actual arpeggio and move it all over the neck. Right? I can do a scale, maybe a descending run, right? Going into an arpeggio. Right? I can do an ascending run and then go into an arpeggio, for example. Right? So all that has to be practiced. You cannot just, hey, I got it. It's like, no, you have to really sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do this run. I'm going to connect the scale into the arpeggio. And one good idea is to maybe force yourself to play certain subdivisions. So let's say I'm just going to do triplets, right? Right, and then stop somewhere. Right? Repetitive ideas. Repetitive ideas are great to understand the key change and not get lost when the actual key change happens. So if, let's say, I use that same triplet idea, and I'm going to use this. So I'm just accommodating for the new chord. So in this case, it's A7. That's the arpeggio, and then D7. So it's just a very, very simple move, right, fret-wise. Okay, you can actually do a whole exercise. Just try to do 2-string arpeggios and don't stop. Don't stop. See if you can manage going through all the arpeggios. Right? So that's a great way to start connecting things, because you have to have the muscle memory to do that and visualize where all these arpeggios are. It's not just like, hey, let me find it with my ear and then, so you'll start fishing. That's not the point. You have to really know where everything is, and so you don't get lost. Then also practice doing runs, let's say from point A to point B. All right, so there on the last portion, I used the chromaticisms because I wanted to land on that C sharp. So that's another thing you can use in all these techniques if you want to have some fun. It's like you start using chromatic passing notes to finish a phrase. So let's see how that sounds. So there I was continuing the whole motif, just ascending 16 notes, but grouping them in 3. So I was actually started on the D. So right, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's, understanding the rhythmic subdivisions, and that's another great tool to have, because if you don't understand the rhythm, you always gonna do the lick, but never making rhythmic sense. And that it's probably half the battle, understanding how you can use the rhythms to maybe reuse the same lick, but not always doing the same subdivisions. Hey, I'm going to do this lick now in triplets, or do it 16 notes, or any other way. Yes. So yes, every chord is dominant. That's what I'm saying. When you're playing the blues, it's like every chord is a new scale, right? So you pretty much have to move all your licks. You can do it symmetrically to get started, but basically, if you do, let's say, an A arpeggio, E, right? So the sound transfers on every chord, right? Every chord is dominant, so it means you have got to play the mixolydian mode for every chord. So A mixolydian, D mixolydian, E mixolydian. So let me play you one more time, and then be really obvious about what I'm doing. A, D mixo, back to A. D. Back to A. Now E. D. A. Now D. A, D, D, A. Right? So really, you have to be aware of what's going on harmonically. Otherwise, two things happen. Obviously, you get lost, and second, you get bored, because you know that you're playing right, and then that's it. Then your solo is done, and then you're pissed. So if you know what's going on, then it's much easier to practice and keep it interesting for yourself, and keep the interest alive to keep practicing. And other than that, it's just put all your techniques together and see what you can do, right? On 3 different keys. You use the bending, right? You can use some tapping, but try to make the change, right? When the change happens, not when you hear it. So you got to be aware when the next chord comes, and that means knowing the chord progression, right? So okay, I got 2 bars of this, and I got 2 bars of that, and so forth. Don't be like, oh, the chord changed. Oh, I forgot to switch. It's like you got to be aware of what happens. And if you keep that in mind, and that takes you further musically, then you can tackle harder stuff. You don't have to become a jazz player, but you can start playing over more complicated jazz progressions just to work on your chops, use your technique, and see when there's more than just one mode, one key, and suddenly you got to think more. You cannot just be like, hey, it's E minor, let's do all the licks that I know. But once you do all the licks you know, after maybe 1 minute, you're done. It's like, that's boring, let's do something else. But when the corporation moves, you don't have so much time to do all the licks you know. So maybe you do 2 or 3 licks, but you constantly move between keys and modes, and then you're busy, right? And you gotta make sense musically. So that's it, right? Keep that in mind. If you want to develop as a musician, know what happens harmonically, know what happens rhythmically, and that way practicing can be fun, not just like, oh, I gotta do these scales. It's like, no, make it fun, use the technique, make music, improvise, jam, and have some fun. So that's it. That's it for today. And I'll see you next week, right? We'll do more fun stuff. All right. I'll see you later.